Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. As you guys saw by the title, I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hi, I would like to stay anonymous. Ever since I was younger, I've had paranormal things happen to my siblings and me, but mainly me. I have many stories I could tell from my childhood, but the one I'm going to share now is the one that has stuck with me ever since it happened. The house I grew up in was a wide, creaky old place built sometime between the 1950s and 60s. It sat on a large plot of rural land, quiet, isolated, and surrounded by tall grass that seemed to whisper whenever the wind blew. My parents rented it because my dad's job as a truck driver meant we needed the space. It had 6 bedrooms, long echoing hallways, and strange cold spots that lingered no matter what the weather was like outside. There was something unsettling about that house from the very beginning. An unease that settled deep in your chest and never went away. I was too young to understand it at the time. We lived there until I was 10, but even now, I still remember that uneasy feeling like it was yesterday. Behind the house, in the backyard, stood 3 large sheds. They were rusting at the edges, always damp inside, and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The middle shed was the darkest. It was cluttered with tools, boxes, and my dad's drink fridge. My father told me I could grab a can of Coke from it every now and then, a rare treat since we rarely got sugary drinks. Just before we found a new house and moved, I was outside playing like any normal 9-year-old would, running around the yard with my stuffed animals, my 3 dogs chasing after me. The sun was still up, though starting to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the ground. At some point, I decided I wanted that soda. I headed for the middle shed, and immediately, something felt wrong. My stomach sank like it was warning me. The air was heavy, and even though it was summer, a cold draft pushed out from the open shed door. My dogs, who always followed me everywhere, froze. One whimpered, and another let out a low growl. When I called them, they backed away. Still, I went in. The moment I stepped inside, the temperature dropped drastically. The darkness inside the shed felt thick, like it was swallowing the space whole. I walked quickly to the fridge, heart thudding in my chest. Just as I reached for the handle, I got the overwhelming feeling that I wasn't alone. Something was watching me. I turned around slowly. That's when I saw it. A dark, shadowy figure standing towards the corner of the shed. It looked like a tall man, completely still, with his back turned to me. Not swaying, not breathing, just there, hanging. I couldn't see a face, only the outline. My skin crawled and I felt frozen for a split second. Then instinct kicked in. I grabbed the can, bolted for the door, and didn't stop running until I was halfway across the yard. Just as I turned around to look, the shed door, the same heavy, rusted door that always stuck and took 2 hands to close, slammed shut on its own. My dogs were already barking, tails between their legs, backing away from the sheds. I didn't tell anyone what I saw, not for a long time. I tried to forget it. Maybe I wanted to believe it was just my imagination. But 2 years later, the memory came back, and this time, it came with something worse. My mother sat us down and said we were finally old enough to know the truth. The man who lived in the house before us had taken his own life in one of the sheds, just a few months before we moved in. She didn't say which shed, but I already knew. When I told her what I'd seen, her face went pale. She laughed nervously, said I must have dreamed it and that there was no way I could have known. But I did. I do. Because I remember exactly how it felt in that moment. That weight in the air, that cold, and that figure in the dark, just watching. That was no dream. Hi, Daisy. I personally haven't had any encounters with duendes, but my brother, who was 13 at the time and is now 17, has. He experienced creepier things than I have, so I'll be telling you a couple of stories from both of us. These stories took place in Texas, back when we lived in a traila in a small mobile home community. I had one room to myself while my mom, stepdad, and youngest brother all shared the other. My other brother slept in the living room. I remember one night, I randomly woke up around 4 a.m. I tried going back to sleep, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't. That's when I got a text from my brother that simply said, Liz. I was confused. What the heck? What does he want? I didn't think much of it at first and figured he was just trying to annoy me. But then he texted my name again and again. I texted back, What do you want? I was getting annoyed because I thought he was just messing with me. Then he said, Come to the living room. I texted him back, I need to sleep. I have work tomorrow. A minute later, I heard my mom's phone ring. She answered, and it sounded like she was talking to my brother. Then she got up and went to the living room to check on him. And at that point, I was thinking, what is going on? So I got up to see what the commotion was about, and I saw my brother in the corner, shivering with fear. All I could hear was his teeth chattering very loudly. My mom and I asked, What's wrong? What happened? And he said, Miré un duende. I saw a gnome. I was confused and asked him, Are you sure you weren't dreaming? But he genuinely looked so terrified that I believed him. My brother is the type who always tries to act tough and doesn't like showing fear. Of course, my mom didn't believe him and just said, Nomás estaba soñando, ya duérmete. You were just dreaming, go to sleep. Seeing him so terrified and shaking made me scared too. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night and stayed up until the sun came up. Later, I asked him what he saw. He told me he had woken up with a strange feeling, like something was telling him to look out the window. So he did. That's when he saw a little old man with a beard, a giant nose, a long pointy hat, and boots. He said the man's clothes looked like what garden gnomes wear, but older and kind of earthy. It looked like he was searching for someone or something. My brother got scared and hid under the covers, but then he felt something touch his foot and heard tiny footsteps running underneath the bed. A moment later, he heard the kitchen sink turn on by itself. He also said our dog started growling and barking at it, which is interesting because before I even got up to check on him, I had heard our dog barking at something too. I asked him, why didn't you come to my room? But he said he was too scared. He froze and couldn't think clearly. I felt so bad for ignoring his texts and not going to check on him. After that, he was so afraid to sleep alone that he started staying in our parents' room. On another occasion, sometime around 1 a.m, he told me he was woken up while sleeping in our parents' room by someone tapping his shoulder. It was our little brother, Axel. Ven a la sala a jugar conmigo. Come to the living room and play with me, Axel told him. But my brother replied, No, ya es muy noche, vete a dormir. No, it's too late, go to sleep. He said Axel didn't listen and just ran off into the dark hallway toward the living room. Worried, my brother quickly woke up my stepdad yelling, "Dad, Axel went to the living room. Go get him." But my stepdad looked at him, confused, and said, "What are you talking about? Axel is right here, lying next to me." I got goosebumps when he told me that story. Now I'll tell you about some of my own experiences. On a different night, my brother was staying with me. He was sleeping on the floor while I was in my bed. At some point, I suddenly felt like something small was crawling or walking across the blanket over my legs. I thought it might have been a rat or something. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, but as soon as I did, the feeling vanished and there was nothing there. I got scared, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I didn't want to wake or scare my brother. I looked around to see if it really had been a rat, but I couldn't find anything. About a month later, I remember lying in my bed one night, trying to fall asleep. I had my nightlight on and was facing the wall. Out of nowhere, it suddenly felt like someone was standing right behind me, breathing down on me. I immediately thought it was my brother trying to scare me or pull one of his usual pranks. I opened my eyes and saw a shadow on the wall and thought, "Ugh, it's him." I turned around, ready to say, "What do you want? Leave me alone." But there was absolutely no one there. My heart sank. I told my mom about it the next day, but of course, she didn't believe me. She just said, "You were probably tired or just dreaming." But no, I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. Another time, I was in my room, lying in bed, scrolling through my phone. I remember the closet door was open. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something jump from the closet to the floor. I usually stored my old school notebooks in there, so I thought maybe a piece of paper had fallen or something. I got up to check what it was, but there was absolutely nothing. I checked under my bed and everywhere. Once again, nothing. Thankfully, we moved out of that mobile home about 4 years ago. I've heard that duendes are drawn to water and nature, and we did live right next to a small creek, so maybe that had something to do with it. Ever since then, though, we haven't experienced anything paranormal. Hi Daisy, I'd like to remain anonymous. In December 1996, I was about 7 years old when I feel like I lost a huge part of my heart, my grandmother. I felt like she was a second mom to me, and I couldn't bear the thought of staying alive without her. During that tough time, I cried countless times, begging God to take me with her. I fell into a dark depression. One evening, after crying myself to sleep, I felt someone sit on my bed in the middle of the night, but I couldn't open my eyes. All of a sudden, I heard my grandmother whispering, "Come with me." I can't fully remember my response, but I do know I couldn't open my eyes. Because I was in such a depressive state, I had become a quiet, lonely little girl who didn't have any friends. At school, the bathrooms were on the lowest floor. After coming out of the bathroom one day, the staircase was directly to my left. I remember looking up to the stairs and seeing my grandmother. She looked exactly as she did when she passed away. Her beautiful gray and white curly hair and her lovely face. But she was wearing something I had never seen her wear in life. A black skirt, a white button-down shirt, a black cowgirl hat, black boots, and a bolo tie necklace. She just stood there, staring down at me, and then waved her hand as if she were telling me to come with her. I remember turning and walking the other way. At that age, I couldn't fully process what was happening. Night after night, this entity would sit on my bed and rub my forearm, telling me to go with them, using my grandmother's voice. One day, still that lonely little girl, I was sitting in a field under a tree when something told me to look up. I'm not sure why, but I did. And I saw people in black gowns standing in a circle around me. I'm pretty sure they were chanting something, but I didn't know what. Eventually, I broke down and told my mom what was happening. At the time of my grandmother's death, she had been under hospice care. My mom reached out to them, and I remember someone from hospice coming to talk to me. They explained they were there to help the family process death. I told the lady what had been going on, and she told me something I will never forget. She said that when I cried out for my grandmother and begged her to take me with her, I opened a door to something dark. At the time, I couldn't remember what she told me to do, but now I do. She said that every time the entity or entities tried to reach out to me or speak to me, I needed to say, I walk with God, and it's not my time to go. I'm now about to turn 36 in September, and I still remember how that entity used to sit on my bed in the middle of the night and whisper for me to go with them. Hi Daisy. I used to work in retail and would go in very early, around 4 to 5 a.m. Not many of us started that early, so it was usually just one, maybe two, other people there from my department. We were all friends and had a routine of meeting by the fitting rooms to say hi and check the tasks for the day. On this particular day, everything was normal. It was early, and there were 3 of us there. The fitting room area was right next to the clearance/sale section, so there was always clothes and other items scattered around. My friends and I were talking when I turned to face the clearance section. We were just joking about how messy it looked. As soon as I turned, I saw a figure. It looked like someone young, maybe in their teens or 20s, with dark hair, pale face, and dark eyes. The moment I turned, it looked at me, and then quickly ducked and scurried to the side. I freaked out and asked my friends if they had seen that. Surprisingly, one of them had, and she had the exact same shocked expression on her face. We walked together to the spot where we saw the figure, but there was no one there. Since it was so early, it couldn't have been a customer, and we were the only ones in that area. When the rest of our team arrived, we told them what happened. That's when they mentioned they'd heard stories from other coworkers about ghosts and strange things happening during early or after-hour shifts. We even heard a theory that when some people pass away, they continue their daily routines, not realizing they've died. So sometimes they go back to work. I'm not sure how true that theory is, but after what I saw, I was definitely nervous about those early morning shifts for a while. Hello, Daisy. This story is from when I lived in a very rural area. During that time, I was living with my uncle and I had just moved into his house. Just a little backstory. This rancho had always been known to be haunted, even before my uncle built his house there. So it wasn't unusual to experience some kind of paranormal activity. My mom, my sister, and I slept in one room together. It was late and the air felt thick. I had trouble falling asleep at first, but eventually I drifted into a deep sleep. Not long after, I began to have a nightmare, which was strange because I never get nightmares. In the dream, I was outside in the dark field, walking back from my grandma's house, and heading up the stairs to the porch. Suddenly, I felt something breathing down my neck. I instantly got this overwhelming feeling that someone was watching me. When I turned around, I saw something in the distance, standing in the middle of the field. I blinked once, and it was closer. It looked like a person, but something about it felt strange. It was a little girl with curly hair. I built up the courage to speak and quietly said, "Who are you? What do you want?" The only response I got was a deep growl. Still staring at it, I started to slowly back up, trying to reach the porch and get inside the house. But in the very next second, the thing lunged at me. That's when I gasped and woke up, covered in sweat, even though it was a cold night. I looked around. My sister was sleeping beside me, but my mom was gone. I got up in the dark room, lit only by moonlight shining through the window. That window looked out onto the porch. I don't know what came over me, but I felt the urge to look outside. As soon as I did, I saw a figure, tall and skinny with long fingers. I immediately drew back from the window. I didn't know what I had just seen, but I knew it saw me too. I stepped away from the window and tried to make my way through the dark room. I remembered my mom had gotten up and gone into the next room over. I eventually found her and slept with her for the rest of the night. To this day, I still don't know what I saw, and I've never been able to explain it. All I know, I will never go back to the house again. So that was it for today's spooky stories. A big thank you to everyone that shared. Thank you guys. You guys just know how to spook me. I swear, it never fails. If you have a spooky story that you would like to share, please send it at my email, daicyspooks@gmail.com. Can't wait to hear your guys's. But I hope you guys are all doing amazing. I hope you guys are all doing well. And I hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye.